What is the biggest difference between when you were a child and now?
I think the biggest difference would probably be that everybody is all about their phones. Kids don't explore the world like they used to.
I think the biggest difference is the technology that is available now. When I was a child, I remember coming home and seeing my mother on television because they had purchased one of the first VCR and camcorders, and they had recorded her and she was on TV, and I thought that was really neat. And now I feel like we have arrived at the Jetsons. Everything that they talked about, talking on the where you can actually see the person's face. Well, now we have FaceTime and Skype. And cars that fly, they're developing those, and all the technology that has occurred over time and space since I was a child has made the greatest impact on the difference and then and now.
My initial response, besides hi, would be to say things have gotten worse, but I don't know if that's true. I just know that as I've grown older, I've become more aware of situations, and maybe I just wasn't aware of that when I was younger, so I think that things were better back then. I don't think a lot of people think about that. So I've been considering that because I was like, was it really better, or did I just not know, and now I know? So nothing.
I would have to say that probably the biggest differences is mostly the conveniences, I think, that kids have today that wasn't available when I was younger.
What is the most memorable historical event in your lifetime, and how did your life change after that?
I think the most memorable historical event that has happened in my lifetime was actually witnessing 9/11. My colleagues and I was actually at work when it happened, and we were called into a conference room where we actually watched the live newscasts of what was going on with 9/11, and we actually saw the planes hitting the towers and the people jumping from the buildings. And this had a tremendous effect on me because it seemed like our country really pulled together after 9/11 and became more united. And I was 30 at the time, and I just never felt, that much loyalty to my country as I felt at that point. So to me, that was a pretty life-changing event.
Probably the most memorable event was in the 70s. I can barely remember when they kept, I think it was the 70s, might have been the early 80s, when they kept hostages on an airplane somewhere in the Middle East. That's the first time I ever remember anything that resembled a terrorist attack. They kept those people hostage for a long, long time. I don't remember how many days or what it was, but because I was very young. But it made an impact on me because up until that point, the world seemed to me to be relatively safe. But then after that, there were people who attacked you for political reasons, attacked innocent people for political reasons, and that was the first time I remember that in my lifetime.
Probably 9/11. The biggest thing for me was I was like, America's not invincible. Was kind of the change, because that was the sort of mentality. And as a teenager, I was a teenager when it happened. As a teenager, you're invincible anyway. So that's what will stop me. If I'm a smoker, I'm not the one that's going to get cancer. I'm the other one. That's not going to. I'm not the guy that's going to wreck and die on the road because I'm a teenager. That sort of idea. But I feel like they kind of changed the way I thought about things once that happened. is actually kind of serious. So it changed that for me, and of course it changed the nation. I think it actually kind of upped the awareness for people in our nation too. So I guess I kind of mirrored that, even on a personal level.
The assassination of JFK. How it changed. I guess we kind of lost our innocence then. The whole country, not just me. I was in 3rd grade, and that's the thing. I can remember that vividly.
Walk, ride buses, or drive to places you went, and do you think you were at a disadvantage compared to kids now?
Actually, I did all of the above. You know, we would walk places like to the store, which was just a little speck down the road. I did ride school buses to the school, and when I was old enough to drive, I did drive myself to school. So I've kind of experienced all of the above there. I don't think that I was at a disadvantage at all. I actually think I was at an advantage. I think people today are at a disadvantage because I think things have been too easy for them. I think it would be better if they had experienced having to walk places, having to ride the bus.
We drove. That's the thing about Appalachia. Since the car has become a staple in most people's lives, you know, people in Appalachia drive because we don't have public transportation systems, and to walk is a ridiculous idea. Even though old timers had to walk, but after the invention and the prevalence of the car, everyone has pretty much driven a car. And no, I don't feel like I'm at a disadvantage, or that I was at a disadvantage to kids now, as far as transportation goes.
I used to ride bikes a lot. I would ride my bike to my friend's house when I was younger and couldn't drive yet. Once I was old enough to drive, I stopped riding the bus, stopped riding the bike really, and then just drove. I don't know that that really puts me in any kind of an advantage or disadvantage compared to people now. It's kind of the same situation, I would imagine. I don't know how the bike situation goes nowadays, but I walked when it was not long. I bicycled when it was a little longer. I didn't have an option. Took the bus until I could drive. And drove when I had the opportunity. So I don't know if that's really changed.
To school, I rode a bus. I do remember going to Pikeville a few times and ride a Trailways bus, I believe was the name of it then. But we would ride those, not often, not very often. We drove most of the places that we went. Now, what was the second part of that question?
Do you think you were at a disadvantage compared to kids now?
Oh, no. I feel like, if anything, the children today are at a disadvantage. And if you're talking about transportation, I think that they rely way too much on parents to get them there when they could just as easily get on the bus and go to school, rather than to have mommy or daddy want to take half an hour, 45 minutes out of their day.
Do you think life is easier, about the same, or harder to succeed than when you were a child?
I think it's harder. Now, how can I explain that? In this area, I mean, when we look at what the types of work that children, when they're just getting out of high school or going to college or a trade school or something, when they get out, where are the jobs for them? There's just nothing here. Now we're hearing of jobs that are coming, and I'm real thankful that that's happening. But I think that it's harder. They have a harder time now than we did. Because look at unemployment. Although right now unemployment is going down a little bit, so that's a good thing. But then you look at, overall, as a nation, it's going down. But I think in our particular area, I think that the unemployment is still really high, and there's no jobs available here. So I think it's more difficult.
So that's kind kind of a double edge for me because in a way I want to say that I think life is easier for kids today because everything's just handed to them for the most part. And when I was younger, we had to work hard for everything we got. And kids today don't have to do that. They're just handed what they want, for the most part. I can't say that for every child. So I think that in that case.
I would think harder. It's harder now. I think a lot of that has to do with technology. Particularly, I think about business and how technology has affected business. So, for the people that were entrepreneurs, you know, working on like selling art projects, this and that, I think it's become more difficult for them because of the information age. Like I can order stuff really cheap from China rather than buy it from, you know, Craig up the road or something. So I think it makes it a little more difficult. And the saturation of the job market, or with bachelor's degrees from colleges, makes it kind of rough. Because like, when I was in high school, it was like, you have to have a bachelor's degree to do anything really. And now, or you know, they actually kind of give you a step ahead, I don't know, like an advantage. But now I feel like it's almost like expected of so many people. I don't think it's required, but I think it's expected.
I think it's harder to succeed now than it was when I was a child, because when I was a child, industry, factory jobs, coal mines, those kind of things for blue collar workers was available, and you made big money in those jobs. Those were coveted jobs, and now we don't have coal mining and all the industry that came along with that, and all the secondary jobs that came along with coal mining, and even away from here, have the factory jobs, just blue collar, putting things together on an assembly line type job anymore. Now, robots do much of the work that humans did in the 70s, and to succeed now, you have to have some kind of a degree in something, in engineering or in mathematics or in tech or something along those lines. And not everyone is geared that way. There's a lot of people who are more English, humanities, and you don't make as much money if you go in that direction for the most part. I saw a study come out the other day that said college graduates graduating this year can expect to start off their careers at about $50,000. But if you go into engineering or tech or medical field, it would be more than that. So the world is geared towards STEM careers, and not every person is geared towards STEM careers.
You know, when I was in high school, you didn't hear of, it's only been 14 years, but you didn't hear of a lot of kids going to college. My generation was the generation where that big push started for everybody to go to college. So with me having my degrees, it was fairly easy to find a job because, there were more vocational traits. But I think it's harder now to succeed in that regard, because everybody's pushing for college degrees and they're a dime a dozen, and it's hard to find more than a minimum wage job with just a high school diploma. So and fields are changing as well. So I think it's harder, it will be harder, for this generation to succeed to be able to find that job that they want, or to be able to be happy with that job that they want, because there's not as many, because there are so many people who have the same credentials.
I think we have about the same, though they did have a harder time succeeding than us because they didn't have like the technology that we have. But other than that, it's about the same.
What do you think the world will be like in 50 years?
Gosh, it's hard to say, because the last 50 years of advantages has in technology, and it's really changed everything. I think we'll find cures for a lot of things that we don't have cures for. I think we'll have vaccinations for a lot of things we don't have vaccinations for. I think, unfortunately, I think for people today, we're going to get lazier and have a lazier society. I can actually kind of picture in 50 years that most people won't even have to move to do anything. And I think not even to work. I think everything's going to be right there at our fingertips. And I think that that's actually going to be a bad thing, because I think it's going to make a lazy society.
Flying cars. It's going to happen. 50 years. That put me at 81. I probably won't be able to drive at that point. Darn it! If I live that long. So I'll probably pass away in a car crash on wheels. So it won't be flying cars. I'm really caught up on this. 50 years, that's really interesting. Like, you know, you hear a lot of people say, the world's ending. Oh, it's all coming to an end. Probably not. So that's about where I'm at. Because, like, I feel like if you look at the pattern, I feel sorry for our history teachers that have trouble conveying that idea to people, that, like, how history repeats itself so often. We thought the world's been coming to an end for a long time. So I think 50 years is just a drop in the bucket, time-wise. Technology will probably get ramped up a little bit. Communication will be interesting. Maybe some virtual reality stuff will be a little more prominent. Beyond just video games, maybe some actual practical application. But really, I don't know about population. That's interesting to think about. So we've had a pretty population increase over the years, but I think it's actually kind of plateauing out. So hopefully we don't have, like, 20 billion people on the planet. We're all starving to live in, stacked double odds. Skyscraper double odds stacks like in Ready Player One. We'll see. Flying cars, that's my bet.
In 50 years, I think the world will be overgrown with technology, like computer-based. Everyone will have computers doing their stuff for them, kind of like WALL-E.
That's a scary question. Really. I'm not sure. I don't think there will be paper. I don't think there'll be paper. I think everything is going to be like computerized and automated and things like that. I hope it doesn't, like, things don't get any worse. I would hope that they would be, like, relatively the same. I don't want to say, like, oh, Back to the Future again, but I'm sure that technology will advance more, but to me that's a scary thought. So I really don't know. I don't know what it'll be like in 50 years, but I foresee a lot more technology and no paper.
The world is running out of new ideas, I feel. If you look at television shows, they're bringing back old television shows from the 80s and 90s and remaking them. They are remaking old movies. They're recovering old songs. They're going back in time and bringing back old plays to Broadway. I feel like most of the new ideas, creative ideas, have already happened, and we're just going to start recapitulating those ideas. And I think that at a certain point, I can't figure out, and I almost think we're there, what new technology, what they can come up with, because if you think about it, Think about the new phones that they're coming out with every so many years. They're really not that much different than the phones you have now. And things changed for a long time. They were so much better and so much better, so much better, and it's almost plateaued. And they keep talking about, in all the meetings I go to and everything I read and watch on TV, they talk about how we need new people and new ideas and new inventions. But I feel like we are coming to almost to the end of new inventions, and the only thing that's going to be, I think we will plateau and just have to eventually learn to be happy with where we are, or we will become very miserable trying to improve things that just can't be improved upon.
Truthfully, I don't think we'll be here in 50 years. I don't. I think that the time is getting short, and I feel that, and I'm sure that every single generation has thought, well, it has to end now. We can't. This world can't go on the way it is. And maybe they felt exactly like I do. But I just feel like that the way our world is going right now, that 50 years might be a really long time for us. And I don't know that we will be here. Don't know that we won't. But it just seems to me like that it can't go on much longer the way that things are going.